Welcome to Desktop Deployment Essentials, our new series to help you prepare for your shift to Windows 10 and Office 365 ProPlus. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the second step in our recommended deployment process wheel, Directory and Network Readiness. We're going to explore the tools and options to prepare you for your deployment to Windows 10 and Office 365 ProPlus. Planning for directory and network readiness is fundamental to your desktop deployment. Your network will often need to support the transfer of huge files for hundreds or thousands of PCs at a time. Then, as with any automated deployment, you need to ensure that your file shares can be reached. And now, as you shift to Windows 10 and Office 365 ProPlus, you'll also need to make sure that cloud-based identity is set up with Azure Active Directory. In fact, Azure AD is key to activating Office 365 ProPlus and to allowing Microsoft Intune to provision apps or policy as you take advantage of modern provisioning solutions like Windows Autopilot. Fortunately, there are tools, options, and even assistance to help in all these areas. Let's start with Azure Active Directory. First, the good news is that if your organization uses Office 365, Exchange Online, Microsoft Intune, or other Microsoft Online services, you're already using Azure AD. Here, you just need to ensure that your users that you're targeting for desktop deployment are in your Azure Active Directory and that licenses have been assigned. If you're not using Azure AD, there are lots of resources to help you set it up, and you probably qualify for personalized assistance via Microsoft Fast Track as part of your Office 365 license. Now let's move on to network readiness, specifically the considerations around bandwidth and ways that you can reduce network traffic. Now, there are three components when planning for deployment impact on your network. First, PC imaging. Second, software updates. And third, user personalization. Now let's start with PC imaging. As you see in our chart here, it helps to plan based on image size. For Windows images with no customization, you should plan for around 4 GB per PC. Customized images with apps are often around 6 GB or larger. Now, the driver packages that layer on top of those are often a few hundred megabytes per PC and sometimes up to 2 GB. Next, Windows 10 and Office 365 ProPlus both use new servicing models. You're going to need to plan for a range of bandwidth for software updates. For example, quality or monthly updates delivered to Windows 10 and Office are cumulative. That means they grow in size each month, usually starting at around a few hundred megabytes and increasing to over a gigabyte by the end of the service lifetime for each Windows 10 version. Now, on the other hand, feature updates or semi-annual channel updates are delivered twice per year and bring new features to Windows and Office. These are larger than monthly updates and can consume even more network bandwidth, especially if several PCs are downloading the update simultaneously. Feature updates in Windows are typically 2 to 4 GB in size, depending on your deployment type, and Office semi-annual channel updates are around 300 to 400 megabytes as well. Lastly, in terms of your user personalization, you need to be able to plan network bandwidth to accommodate restoring user files, settings, and applications as part of a PC refresh or replacement process. User state alone can often exceed 20 gigabytes per PC, and in rare scenarios can grow to over 100 gigabytes depending on the user. Across these three areas, network traffic can easily exceed 25 gigs per PC for the initial migration and around a gigabyte per month per PC to stay up to date. Now, with all those considerations in mind, let me first give you a few old and some new tricks that you can use to reduce network traffic dramatically. So today, if you want to limit deployment-related traffic on the network, you throttle it using bits or by setting limits on Config Manager distribution points or enabling multicast with WDS. For Config Manager, server-side throttling has traditionally been used with remote distribution points, and starting with Config Manager 1806, it also supports throttling traffic to clients without requiring bits. Throttling specific traffic means that normal network traffic is less impacted by PCs downloading updates and applications. Now, while carving out a certain percentage of bandwidth for these tasks seems like a good idea to ensure that user productivity is not impacted by Windows or Office deployment, it can take longer to transfer files required for deployment. So users are locked out of their PCs longer while a deployment occurs. Fortunately, there are new tools to make it easier for you to manage network impact of a large-scale desktop deployment. Windows Low Extra Delay Background Transport, or LEDBAT, is a new way to truly optimize network traffic to Windows clients. LEDBAT uses all available network bandwidth possible as a background task and instantly yields bandwidth to other traffic requests. Also, compared to classic throttling or bits, LEDBAT can provide extreme performance gains, which is especially useful for deployment processes like bringing packages down from deployment servers. Now, everything is configured on the server side, and native integration is also already available in Config Manager Current Branch. Now, beyond traffic management, another complementary and emerging way for managing bandwidth is to use peer-to-peer caching. For PC imaging, software updates, and user personalization, peer-to-peer options are being used more and more when migrating to Windows 10, and is important after your initial deployment of Windows 10 to facilitate build-to-build upgrades. Now, there are several peer-to-peer options like branch cache, peer cache, and delivery optimization to help move Windows 10 and Office-related traffic away from the center of the network out to the perimeter. Again, this can eliminate the need for classic throttling approaches. Also, it means that PCs needing updates won't have to individually download them from a distribution point or the internet, but instead can find those necessary files from peers in their local network. Branch cache, for example, helps you download content in distributed environments without saturating the network. It comes in two different options: distributed cache mode, where clients can share already downloaded content with other clients, and this is also supported by Configuration Manager, and hosted cache mode for when you're using local servers to cache content. Next, peer cache, which is available for Config Manager clients only, can be enabled on carefully selected PCs that reliably can serve as host source for content distribution. Now, I say carefully selected because you don't want to enable this on all your PCs. Instead, you'll want to target desktop or tower PCs with reliable network connections. Peer cache can even work for deployment tasks running in Windows PE phases during setup. Note that branch cache and peer cache are complementary and can work together in the same environment. Now, this brings us to delivery optimization. It's another peer-to-peer caching technology that's been around since early versions of Windows 10, but it's only been recently integrated with Config Manager. Delivery optimization is used whenever Windows 10 updates its built-in UWP apps, or when you install an application from the Microsoft Store. Now, it's also used for software updates when using Express updates. As of Windows 10 version 18.03, you can independently configure bandwidth limits for background updates and foreground jobs, like when you install an app from the store. So we've covered network-based controls to optimize bandwidth for Windows-based deployment, and there are additional tools and configurations that can reduce your network load for Office 365 ProPlus deployment. First, there's something called binary delta compression. Office 365 ProPlus uses new technology to reduce bandwidth consumed by software updates. Binary delta compression is used when you update from the most recent release of Office 365 ProPlus to the next release. Now, this reduces the impact from month-over-month growth of cumulative updates by only pulling the binary level changes from the previous release. Over time, this can save hundreds of megs per PC, but in order to use this capability, you can't skip releases. Next, you'll want to plan for the network impact of Outlook data files, which in some systems cases can be up to 100 gigabytes in size. And these files are typically loaded from your Exchange server from scratch after a user signs into Windows for the first time. Outlook and Office 365 ProPlus or Outlook 2016 will set a default value for mail to keep offline to 12 months for most PCs. Now, to limit bandwidth used to reload Outlook data files post-deployment even further, you can use group policy to significantly reduce the network traffic by limiting offline cache to between 1 and 6 months. And remember, these settings don't affect the size of the online mailbox. The entire mailbox can still be searched locally from the Outlook client. Now, if you're moving files, OneDrive is a great option for synchronizing and protecting files from PCs and other devices to the OneDrive service in the cloud. With Known Folder Move, you can enforce file sync from a user's desktop, documents, and pictures folders to OneDrive. Then, when signing into a new or reimaged PC, those files are available. Network controls are also available via group policy to throttle bandwidth used by the OneDrive sync service. And if you haven't already rolled out OneDrive, the shift from Windows 7 to Windows 10 is a perfect opportunity to enable OneDrive, and it integrates seamlessly with Office 365 ProPlus. Remember, though, that due to the sheer size and number of files kept in desktop, documents, and pictures locations, you'll want to be planful with the rollout of policies that are enabling and enforcing OneDrive on your PCs. Now, if you're planning to move OneDrive as part of your Windows desktop deployment, you can start this rollout while working through your app and device readiness to give the sync a bit of a head start before you start moving Windows images and files over the network. So that was an overview of a few core options for directory and network readiness and the things that you can do to optimize bandwidth consumption at all stages of your desktop deployment. Next up, we'll cover your considerations for Office and LOB app delivery as you move to the next step on the deployment process wheel. And to learn more about what we covered today, visit our Modern Desktop Deployment Center and keep following our Desktop Deployment Essentials series here on Microsoft Mechanics. Thanks for watching.